There was a time when credit cards did not exist. It was a time of cash and checks, tabs and accounts. This may seem shocking to the young generations of today, but it is true. Credit cards have only been around for half a century or so. In those 50 years, the financial innovation of the credit card has revolutionized the way Americans spend and shop. Consumers today rarely use concepts such as layaway or Christmas club accounts. Although it has brought convenience to the masses and allowed new businesses to grow and flourish, this innovation has negatively impacted the American work ethic in a greater degree with each generation. For example, my great-grandfather still paid cash for a car. Today, we use a credit card to buy something as simple as a carton of milk. This innovation has changed the shape of American business, but has it made our generation one of takers and not savers?
I want it all! I want it all! I want it all! And I want it
now! If you needed money in the 1800s, you could pick your poison. Pawnbroker, realtor, friend, family member, illegal small loan lender, or mortgage lender. By 1858, consumer debt measured as high as $1.5 billion in the U.S., and it rose to $11 trillion just 32 years later. At first, credit cards were really just substitute markers for payment. Rather than deal with looking up account numbers for each transaction, stores started issuing credit cards or tokens instead. After getting the bill, the customer simply had to pay or would likely lose credit to the store. John Briggins of the Flatbush National Bank of Brooklyn, New York, invented the first actual bank credit cards in 1946. Through his Charge It program, merchants could deposit their sales slip in the bank, and the bank would bill the customer.
I guess it was around 1951, and I remember a couple of my friends received credit cards, and I didn't know what they were, and they explained them to me and told me that, hey, you know, this is great, that you just have to show these, and you can pick up merchandise, but of course you pay for it in the end. And I said, gee, that sounds great.
Another key moment in the development of credit cards started with Frank McNamara, a New York businessman who faced embarrassment when he realized he'd forgotten his cash while entertaining a client at Major Cabin's Grill. His wife covered the bill, but McNamara did not forget the event. A few weeks later, he discussed an idea for the Diners Club with his lawyer, Frank Schiffner. Using the Diners Club card, people could eat in a variety of restaurants and pay their tabs at the end of the month. The card became so popular that other financial organizations mimicked the idea.
I went to a place to try and pick up one of the businesses, and I figured I'd go there where a couple of them picked up their credit cards, and they took all my information, and then I didn't hear from them. So I went back and they said I was refused. I don't know why I was refused, but I was refused because I had a job. One of the other friends had a job that didn't pay as well as the one I had. I just couldn't figure it out because I never had any credit history because this would be my first credit card. But eventually, I did receive a credit card.
Franklin National Bank issued the first revolving credit card in 1951, allowing customers to borrow and repay money without approval as long as they stayed under their credit limit. Bank of America, which became Visa, and MasterCard took the idea one huge step further in 1967, creating interchange, a system that allowed banks to settle credit transactions throughout the U.S. rather than just locally. So what happens when easy credit becomes commonplace? Fast forward to today, when we mix easy money with young generations. Credit cards lead to combustion. The current generation is known as Generation Y, or the Millennials. They are the children of boomer parents, born between 1977 and 1996. the millennials are unlike any generation the world has seen before. They're the largest population yet, with 83 million Americans in 2008 and 90 million predicted for 2010, 50% of which are in the 18 to 49 demographic. They're a generation of optimism, empowerment, education, and ambition. But with these qualities comes egocentricity. A generation of me's, the millennials take pride in themselves, boasting about their generation's power and potential. They were brought up with an empowered parenting style and therefore are not afraid to express their opinions. According to Dr. Hiam Janat, Barney teaches his young audience to resist or flee painful emotions, an approach that only guarantees their persistence. Indulgence. Described as the prematurely affluent generation, they are poised to become the next great luxury consumers and more likely to borrow large sums of money for studies and financing and take out more debts on credit cards. 77% feel they can rely on friends and family to help them out financially. Entitlement. A therapist with the Aspen Education Group describes it as Golden Goose Syndrome.
Don't care how I want it now.
A generation with a sense of entitlement will also refuse to take responsibility when it makes a mistake. For example, if a millennial gets a speeding ticket, he expects his parents to pay for the ticket and increased insurance premiums and to keep driving as if nothing had happened. These traits are the weaknesses that make credit cards so dangerous for this generation. Despite this time of credit crunch and economic downturn, younger generations are relying on credit cards more than ever before, according to a recent study conducted by Sally May.
I have access to both a credit card and a debit card.
I use the credit card and everything. Really, I just daily usage.
American teenagers spend more than $150 billion a year, more than the gross domestic product of Finland, Ireland, or Chile. Ranked at the top of expenses charged were food, with 84% of spending, clothing, with 70%, and cosmetics, with 69%.
I am more likely to spend with it.
They are more likely to spend, but less likely to check prices when using credit cards. We asked a couple of teenage drivers who own credit cards if they knew the current price of gas.
I think on the way to school I saw $3.80.
It's about, I got gas this morning, so at 1 gallon, I would say about $5 for mine.
Unfortunately, these teenagers are not unique and are only a glimpse into the millennial mindset. They are less inclined to use cash and more likely to use credit or debit cards to make purchases and are extremely comfortable using plastic as a payment method. These young adults have the lowest revolving balances compared to other demographic groups of cardholders, but their balances tend to encompass a high percentage of their average credit limit. According to the National Bankruptcy Research Center, adults 18 to 24 are the fastest growing group of credit card users and bankruptcy filers. Credit cards are dependent on the weaknesses of this generation, allowing the millennials to sit comfortably while debt stacks up around them. The work ethic of this generation and future generations will be forever damaged if they do not resist the temptation that these credit cards pose.